What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about 8 steps to be a great wide receiver. We're going to be talking about the specific things that wide receivers need to do throughout the route, at the top of the break, and then off the line of scrimmage to create separation and just be a better overall wide receiver. So I hope this gives you some value, but also, fellas, if you guys aren't sure what kind of drills you need to be working, what kind of routes you need to be repping, and the specific sets and reps you need to be doing, so check out that very first link in the description for a 4-week-long wide receiver on-field workout plan. What you'll get access to is 28 days of a plan where we break down step-by-step the specific drills you need to do with sets and reps. We give you rest periods, specific exercises on the field, and then we include a 30-minute instructional video where we break down each day of the plan, all the specific drills, why those drills are important, and then we give you a full-speed example. So check out that very first link in the description, fellas, for our 28-day on-field wide receiver workout plan. Let's get started. So first things first, number one step to being a great wide receiver is everything is a fade until it's not a fade, right? You guys have probably heard me talk about this. Play this clip full speed. There's a perfect example of how you guys need to break on all routes, right? So that's Keenan Allen. He's running this stop route, just coming back to the ball. The main thing is to get this DB to believe fade, I have to do 3 things. I have to have my eyes committed downfield, number one, right? So your eyes are super important. So many receivers struggle with this, is that when they get to the top of the route, their eyes will start to telegraph where they're going. They'll stay, even if you consciously aren't even thinking about that, your eyes will start to turn on that break that you're doing. And then what that'll cause is that'll round your shoulders and round your hips, and that's going to make this DB sit down. This DB is going off of us. He's reacting off of us. So what I need to make him think is that I'm trying to just run right past him. I'm looking over his outside shoulder. Now, the second thing that's going to help you get separation is that this DB is trying to match my speed. So if I'm going up into this route and my steps are super choppy and I'm slowing down, I'm cutting my stride down, that's going to make this DB cut his stride down too, because he's matching my tempo. So if I could be in full stride, have my eyes straight forward, and then that brings me to the third tip, I want to have my hips and my shoulders committed. So we call that body language. So you got to make sure that your body language says that you're running a fade. Now, what do I mean by pad level? What do I mean by body language? You want to be in this like 45-degree angle almost right here. You don't want to be hunched forward because that's going to limit your stride, but you also don't want to be leaning back, because when you lean back, when you get into a break, if you're leaning back, you're going to be slow, and that takes more time at the top of the break, which allows the DB to drive on this thing. So make sure that we could get those 3 key things, and then when I'm in stride into the route, I'm dropping my hips violently to be able to stop on a dime, but we're going to get into that later part in this video. So the number one step to being a great wide receiver is everything is a fade until it's not, with my eyes, my body language, and then ultimately my stride. Let's watch it full speed one more time, then we'll get to the next tip. So great job pushing up vertical, staying in stride, and then being violent with his hips to change direction. Okay, so now number 2, anytime you have a double move, fellas, you got to make sure that we are selling this thing completely. So that's the second step right there, and that's just really on any cut. So any kind of speed cut that you do, any kind of indicator cut, you got to be fully committed and you got to trust the cut leg. So everybody loves to talk about sudden feet, and that's kind of the second tip that we're talking about today. You want to be sudden with your breaks because you're committed. So this guy's Lawrence Kager here is running a post corner, right? So when I run a post corner, when I break to this post, everything about this wants to say post, right? So it kind of ties into the same things we were talking about in step 1. He's got to have speed on this post break. His eyes got to go back to the quarterback, and his hips and shoulders have to be committed onto this break, right? Or else the DB's not going to jump. Everything about it has to say post, right? If you're running a normal post, this portion of it right here is not going to be choppy steps. It's not going to be steps where your chest is straight up in the air and you're leaning back. You want to be going forward. You want to be bursting out of there. So you see when he comes out, it's 1, 2, bam, 3. And you see how sudden that cut is. He's just shooting that foot in the ground. He's not reaching for it. That's also ties into having sudden feet, because that's what's going to change direction for you. It's almost like a mind-body connection, right? So when your hips and your shoulders or you're committed onto a break and you actually have speed into that break, you're really going to be forcing yourself to have to make that sudden change of direction. If this foot isn't sudden and it's a soft cut, you're going to drift off of this route and you're not going to be able to get back on that 45 because you're not being sudden enough, right? The suddenness of your breaks is what will help you change direction. You just got to make sure that you commit to the break with speed, and you got to make sure that you commit to the break with your body language. That is ultimately what will force you to be more sudden, and that sudden stick is what helps you decelerate. Kind of like what we were talking about in the last clip. You want to be violent with your hips when you got to drop down. Anytime you're making that speed cut or that one cut, even if this is just a straight up post, you want to keep that cut inside your frame, and you want to be sudden with that cut, because the suddenness is what creates explosion. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great example here of how being sudden is what what changes direction for you, especially when you're selling your routes. Okay, so that's the second step. Be sudden with your feet. And the first step is everything fades till it's not. So now we're going to be talking about the third step is to be an ultimate salesman anytime you're working a cut at the route, like what we were talking about, right? So if I'm making here, this is like a situation where there's almost like a corner post corner in a way. There, I don't really, there's really not necessarily like the right name for it. Everybody's been taught different things, but we're going to be talking about how a DB is supposed to be watching your hips and what can get you some space, right? So that's the third step, is being a salesman. So you see when this receiver, he's working this rocker step, right? So what is a rocker step? If you're not familiar with this channel, we talk about that a lot. That's a double move, right? So like that's at the top of the route. If I got to go to the outside, I'm stepping with my outside leg first, and then I'm throwing a cut back to the inside. So now, where is this DB supposed to be watching? It's pretty universal. He's supposed to be watching my hips, right? So I actually got to sell with my upper half. The mistake that so many receivers make is that they'll make this cut, but they just give a little lean. They just give a little lean with their head and their shoulders, and they lean to the outside. That doesn't do anything, fellas. The DB ain't looking at that. The DB's not looking at your eyes. He's not looking at your shoulders. Everybody loves to say, oh, he's throwing a head fake. It's not about just throwing a head fake. You got to throw a body fake into this thing, because that's the only way it gets this guy to jump. It's like a crossover in basketball. You almost want to think of it like that first step is pushing you into this second cut, right? Or even if it's just one single cut, you got to make sure that you sell with your upper half and throw with your upper body, right? So you see how he's here, his shoulders and his hips are saying one thing, but when he makes that cut, his toes are staying forward. He's not opening up his toes, right? That's what brings me to this third step, is that I don't want to open everything up when I'm trying to sell. So many guys will point that toe towards the middle of the field. That'll open up their hip, and then they can't drive in this direction. I ultimately want to keep my toes straight forward, weights on the inside arch of my foot, but I sell with my upper half. This upper half is what gets the DB to jump. That foot with my toe staying forward is what creates explosion and what is bursting me back out to the spot that I need to get to. So the third step to being a great wide receiver is be a salesman with that upper half, but still maintain that explosion with my lower half. Let's watch it again full speed. Great job demonstrating that rocker step to get that DB to jump. Now, fourth tip is you got to be able to react off the line of scrimmage. So a lot of the time, everybody talks about press releases. Everybody talks about the different releases that you guys can use, and 100% you guys got to have a plan off the line of scrimmage, but sometimes it doesn't go to plan. Sometimes this DB wants to take some things away. That's what we're going to be talking about here. So Judy's running a corner route. So it's play at full speed. So Judy comes off here, and you see how that DB jumps to the outside. So Judy takes the inside release. So step 4 is trust yourself off the line of scrimmage and trust yourself at the top of the route and be able to read a DB. So a corner route, right? A lot of you have probably been told that you have an outside breaking route. You must take an outside release. That's not the case at all. You guys got to be able to trust yourself at the top of the route and trust your releases. So sometimes when you come off the line and you give this little like split release, right? And there are a bunch of different releases that do this, where you're gathering info on this DB. You're getting a read on him. How is he playing me? Is he trying to take away the outside? Is he trying to take away the inside? So you see how this DB opens up that gate to the outside, right? So if Judy were to just run this corner to the outside, that DB would just get right into his hip, force him to that sideline, and then he has an opportunity to undercut this ball, and we don't have as much space to the outside for my quarterback. So if he's going to take away the outside, fine. I'm just going to take the inside release, and let's try to work to restack. I got to always have a plan, but I got to also have a reactionary plan. This DB takes away what I want to do. I got to be able to react. Bam, I'm still getting up into this route. I'm still concerned with keeping timing with my quarterback. So you see how Judy bursts up to the inside. In this case right here, we could do one of two things. I could either work to restack and then give him this rocker step like we talked about. And again, brings me back to the last tip. Shoulders and hips are one way, toes are staying the other way. Or if he's playing this thing well and he's up top, I could just throw him by at the back of his shoulder, the back of his hip, and slip back underneath. So you got to make sure that you have a reactionary plan off the line and that you trust yourself at the top of the route. Okay, so that's what brings me to the next step. Make sure that we understand how to react off the line of scrimmage and how we can trust myself and create separation on any route at the top of the break. Let's watch it again full speed. Great job getting a read on this guy and then throwing that rocker step at the top. Trust yourself at the top of the break, fellas. Okay, so the next step that we're going to be talking about here is don't be afraid to be physical. So this is a clip of Elijah Moore in college, and we got a DB here. So if you're a bigger physical guy, we got to be able to use that to my advantage, right? So if I'm a smaller dude, like here, let's watch it full speed. So you see how Elijah Moore, this is called a shock release, right? So this is a great release that you guys can use really in any situation when you got a DB who's trying to test you, who's maybe trying to get physical. But if you're a strong receiver, a big receiver, a tall guy, we have to use that to our advantage, right? If you're a smaller dude coming out of the slot and you're maybe not the strongest guy, you're going up against a lot of linebackers, strong safeties, this probably ain't a part of your game. Your game is going to be quickness. So the next step to being a great wide receiver, don't be afraid to be physical, but also play to your strengths, right? It's like if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, if you're a wrestler and you're going up against a boxer, you're probably not going to try to stand up and strike with him. You're probably going to try to take him down, right? So that's how you guys got to approach this anytime that I'm coming up against press. I don't want to stand here and I don't want to try to get in this hand fight and give a shock release to somebody if they're double the size of me and they're stronger than me. But if you're a strong guy, you can't be afraid to be physical. You got to be able to take this fight to him. You got to be able to drive from your legs, drive from your hips. It's almost like a block, and this is not a flag because DBs do this all the time to us, and then be able to get separation. So next step to being a great wide receiver, understand your strengths and don't be afraid to be physical. Let's watch it again full speed. Great job shocking him, and then great job bursting up into this route. Okay, so now let's talk about this next thing here. We're going to be talking about understanding what the correct hand technique is. That's the next step to being a great wide receiver. Understand what hand we have to beat. So we're looking at Alshon Jeffrey here. So when we come off this thing, you see how he's able to just swat the outside hand to Ramsey. Now, this ball was overthrown a little bit, but the thing is that we got to understand what release we want to take. So everybody loves to talk about hand technique. Oh, what do I do? What do I do if a DB jams me? What if I do if a DB gets hands on me? You guys can't panic. Understand where you got to go on this route, right? So if I got to take an inside release, I know I just got to beat this inside arm because the whole point of a jam, think about it from a DB perspective. He's jamming you to keep timing, to disrupt timing with the quarterback. We want to get off the jam, so I keep timing with my quarterback and I can actually get up into the route, so it's like a free release, right? So when I set him up to the inside and I want to take an outside release, what hand do you have to beat? You have to beat his outside hand. So do I need to worry about swatting with this one, ripping underneath? No. If I could set him up with my feet, the feet are the most important part of the release, and I could get some kind of weight to his inside leg, all I got to do is rip underneath. All I got to do is just shrug this thing off, and that forces his hips to lock out. If he was running a fade, he would have him on this, right? Even being a bigger dude and probably not as fast as Ramsey, we got to understand just what to do with my hand technique. Set him up and know which arm that you have to beat as a receiver off the line. So that's the next step. Understand that it's not too complicated to work that hand technique off the line. So you see how he sets him up inside, rips underneath, and then we burst back upfield. Again, he's open. Ball was a little overthrown, but still, that's how we understand that hand technique, okay? So now, what we're going to talk about here is that off the line, fellas, you want to make everything look the same. That's the next step here. So this is like how you don't get just utterly just figured out before the game even starts, right? Especially if you're in high school, college, you got defensive coordinators, DBs who are smart, right? Yes, you'll get some who are idiots, but you have some who are smart and they study you, right? They understand what you're trying to do off the line. They understand that in this situation, they like to run this route. He likes to do this release. He likes to make this move. So as a receiver, we can't be too predictable. So let's watch Keenan Allen right here. He's running this whip route, right? Everything about that looks like he's running a what? He looks like he's running a slant. So when we come off here, you see how when he breaks up on this thing, it looks like he's running a slant. It looks like he's giving him a little lean into him, and then he's going to run a slant, and then he just pops this thing off on a whip route. And you see how much space he's able to get because he made it look the same. Fellas, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is that receivers don't do a million different things out there. They don't run, not like, let's say you got a route tree 0 through 9. They don't run 9 different things, do 9 different moves. They probably do about 5 different things, and they make it all look real similar. Look at guys like Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen. Off the line of scrimmage, what do? They all work that little hezzy skip, and then they're off. And it all looks similar, fellas. So you got to make sure you have a set plan. You have about 5 to 6 things in your head going into a game. You're prepared for any situation that a DB comes out in. You know this because of film study. You know that they're an off-man heavy team. All right, that's what I'm coming in. That's the plan that I got. I'm going to be working different moves at the top of the route. You know that you're going up against one of the best DBs in your league who likes to press. They like to leave him on an island. I got about 5 different things. I'm ready to go for whatever look he comes out with. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. So make sure, next step to being a great wide receiver, fellas, is make sure that you make everything look the same and you're not too predictable. There's a great example of this by Keenan Allen. Great job getting out of this route. So the last tip that I can give you guys is make sure you treat every play like it has a purpose, right? So when I come off here, you see how this DK Metcalf's in practice film. He's backside. This is probably a run play, but when you guys are working releases backside of the play, you're setting up this DB with a move, whatever, whatever it is, and you're able to accelerate and create some space like this, this gets the DB thinking. And when we can get in the DB's head, when I'm backside on a route, I'm working different moves, I'm trying to set him up to the outside, I'm trying to get his feet to stop, that can get me a ton of space when we actually have something set up. Because now, let's say Metcalf comes out, let's say they want to throw a goal line fade to him, and he comes out, he gives this same, I'm not saying gives this little same skip footwork release because it's maybe not the best thing to go with, but let's say he comes out and he gives the same kind of hesitation move, but now that DB's sitting to the inside, he's like, I don't want to get beat on a slant again, then what does that open up? Bam, that opens up the fade, right? So you guys got to make sure that even when you're backside on a play, that's the last step to being a great wide receiver, everything that you do has a purpose. If your job is to run the guy off, I'm working different moves that'll set up other routes throughout the game. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Great job by Metcalf working backside of the play. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope this video gave you guys some value. Hope it taught you some new things about just route running. And if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comments below. And again, fellas, 4-week on-field wide receiver workout plan, all the specific drills, techniques, sets, and reps that you guys need to work to improve your route running, press releases, hands, explosiveness, all the above. Very first link in the description. I'll see you guys next time.